Today on Locked on Blue Jackets, talking about everyone's favourite fighting Frenchman or goal-scoring Frenchman, I guess. As today we are looking at the season review for Alexandre Texier on Locked on Blue Jackets.
Locked on Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked on Blue Jackets. We're part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I am your host, Jay Foster, here to bring you all of the news, the stories, the trials, the tribulations, the joys, the agonies of your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. And today we're continuing our series reviews, or season reviews, I guess, of everyone who played in a Blue Jacket sweater this season. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making sure this is their first listen of the day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. And whether you are watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast apps, I appreciate you. So thanks for stopping on by. And let's get into it. Let's talk about Alexandre Texier, because I feel like he is, for a guy that only played like 40 games this season, I feel like he's been weirdly divisive. I talked to Jeff Svoboda, Jackets Insider, about this time last season, actually, and we talked a little bit about, guys taking steps forward next season, and Alexandre Texier was a guy that Jeff mentioned, that he said he has to take a step forward in his development. Last season, he only had 15 points in 49 games. The season before that, which I think was technically his rookie season, he had 13 in 36. He played 2 games the season before that, so his first North American season was 2018-19. He only had one goal in 2 games, but this season he had 20 points in 36 games. We're going to get into like the reason he was gone in just a little bit, but to me, that's a step forward, honestly. He had 11 goals in those 36 games. He was second on the team in goals at one point because the Blue Jackets were pretty bad at scoring goals for a little while there. Unfortunately, he missed. He went out about the same time as the Patrick Laine injury, I think. He fractured his finger. Was supposed to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Went back to France for a little bit to kind of recuperate, and I believe there was a family bereavement or a personal something or other that basically kept him in France indefinitely. There was a statement put out, and so we didn't see Texier for the rest of the season, which is a shame because, like I said, I think he was really starting to build something in terms of a development, and I think it's tough to say, yeah, he took a step forward when he only played 40 games, but even in those, 36 games, not even 40, but in those 36 games, he hit career highs in goals and points, and for a guy that played mostly on the fourth line for those 36 games, 10 goals. If I get 10 goals off every fourth line guy, 10 to 15 goals in 40 games, you prorate that. Obviously, it's going to jump up and down a little bit. But if you say, okay, 11 goals in 36 games, if you double that to 60, 72, not even a full season, that's 22 goals. If you can get 22 goals out of a full season of your fourth liner, that's I'm pretty happy with that. And, Jeff Svoboda's talked about it a little bit as well, kind of when he really started to get going. He was like, Texier's looked really good down on that fourth line. He's getting a little bit of his, snarl back. And, yeah, some guys. I think a lot of the frustration over the past couple of seasons with Texier has been he is not what people thought he was going to be. He was originally a second-round draft pick back in 2017, 45th overall, and I think there was a lot of anticipation, I guess, is the word I'm looking for. There was a lot of people who expected him to come and be a top 6 guy. And while I've been doing my prospect profiles for the upcoming draft, I've talked with a lot of different guys about, what is your expectation from someone getting picked in the, top 15 of the first round, for example. what's your expectation for a first round draft pick? What's your expectation, you know? And I think once you start getting out of that kind of top 15, then it just kind of your expectation, I think, should drop. And for a guy that was picked kind of in the middle-ish of the second round, or almost exactly in the second round, I think, almost exactly halfway through the second round, getting a guy like Texier to, yeah, okay, maybe he will be a fourth line guy. Maybe he will be a bottom six guy, but I don't necessarily think that that's a bust, especially if he's going to be a bottom six guy that scores 20 goals a season. I don't know that he will. Like, again, not looking at full season. He hasn't played a full season yet. So, that's something we're going to talk about in just a little bit. Something else we're going to talk about in just a little bit is how his season went, because I think we've talked about it in kind of broad strokes, but I wanted to kind of zoom in a little bit and talk about his game specifically. But I think readjusting expectations is going to be something that's very important to do for Texier, because I don't think we should be looking at Texier and being like, well, why isn't he our second line center? Because I just don't think that's. I don't think that's what he can be for this team. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. We're going to talk about his season in a little bit more detail. But first, I've got to tell you about a new sponsor that I use literally every day. So I started taking Athletic Greens because I wanted to eat better. I wanted to look after myself more. I didn't have a ton of time to start making these like super fancy protein shakes every morning. So I started with AG1. And honestly, I have never felt better. I've been taking it a few months now. It's super good for you, super delicious. And with one scoop, you're absorbing 75 high quality vitamins, minerals, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens. Supports gut health, nervous system, immune system, energy, recovery, focus, aging, everything that you want to fix about your diet, you can fix with AG1. It is lifestyle friendly, whether you eat keto, paleo, vegan, dairy free, gluten free, contains less than a gram of sugar, there's no GMOs, no nasty chemicals or anything like that. And it costs you less than $3 a day. You're investing in your health and it's cheaper than your Starbucks habit. So right now, it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition. It is just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That is it. There is no need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. And you can make it easy by going to Athletic Greens. They're going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Once again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. So let's talk about Texier's season, because, yeah, he played on the fourth line, but I thought he was a very, very good fourth liner. He played kind of a little bit up and down the lineup. He kind of struggled playing higher in the lineup. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. Again, I like it. We just talked about in the last segment. Sometimes players are bottom six guys, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think, the instinct is to be, well, he was picked in the second round. He should be a good player. And I'm like, yeah, if you pick him in the second round, I think you want to expect an NHL player. I don't think that you should be able to expect a top six or an elite guy picked in the second round, But he was, if you look at like just his stats, he played 36 games for the Blue Jackets, had 20 points, so just under half a point per game. He had 11 goals. He was one of only a handful of Blue Jackets to hit double digits in goals. I think only 6 or 7 Blue Jackets hit double digits in goals. He was one of them, and he only played 36 games, So what can he do with a full season? I do think we are kind of reaching a point with him where he does need to take that significant step forward. Frustratingly, I do think he was taking that step forward this season, obviously before the injury and then before the personal issues. But beyond that, like I say, 11 goals, which is his previous career high in goals for the Blue Jackets was 6. So he's almost doubled that in the same amount of games. If he can play a full season, and I realize I'm saying that his time is running out right now, but it feels very dramatic. He's only 22. He'll be 23 by the time this next season starts. I don't I don't know. I don't see a problem with giving him a little bit more time. He's currently making 1.25 million, which okay is maybe a little steep, but I'm not. He is not who I am worried about next season. In a minute, we're gonna kind of take a look at what I do think he needs to do. In the next segment, we're gonna take a look at kind of his next steps to becoming kind of the player that we need. Um, Okay, he was tied for 8th on the team in goals. The players above him, Bjorkstrand, Line, Jenna, Roslovic, all hit 20 plus. Nyquist, Cole Sillinger, Sean Crowley, Zach Renske, and Adam Boquist. Those are the guys that had more goals than him. And basically all of those guys, I think, except for Boquist, who was injured a lot this season, played basically the full season or played over 50 games. I think is the cutoff point for that. So I'm pretty happy with how Texier played this season. I liked the style of play. Did he maybe take a few too many penalties? The answer is no. Actually, he had 12 penalty minutes, so he took 6 minor penalties. Which, if I can do math, I keep trying to challenge myself to do math like not live, but like while I'm recording. One penalty every 6 games is pretty good, especially for a guy who plays like Texier, who plays a very like Jeff Swoboda said, like I mentioned, he plays with kind of a snarl. Um, he does have kind of a almost a Boone Jenner type game, I think. And so I'm genuinely shocked that he had that few penalties. And something else I want to kind of touch on briefly as well before we move on to kind of Texier's future with the team. He played internationally this season. He played 14 international games. He played. This math doesn't add up, but he played 3 games at the Olympic qualifiers. France did not make it to the Olympics. He had 4 points in 3 games. Then he had 5 points in 7 games at the World Championships. France avoiding relegation. So somehow this gives me 10 points in 14 games. There must be missing some international somewhere. 10 points in 14 games, again, is pretty good. I would argue he's maybe the best. He's definitely the best French-born player in the NHL right now. He could be one of the best French players, like, ever. And I don't think it makes sense to be like, yeah, he's 22, write him off. Because he needed more than 4 years to develop. Like, I think some guys are just slower developers than others. And again, I continue to think he's on the right track with all of this. You look at, you maybe look at some, I guess, contemporary, some other 2017 round picks. Let's look at who was kind of drafted around him. So drafted after him in the same draft, we're looking at, man, there really are there's not a ton of names that were drafted after him. Maxime Comprois for the Anaheim Ducks was drafted after him. Mario Ferraro was drafted after him. Like that's in the second round. That's kind of those are the 2 notable names. Alex Formenton in Ottawa. Guys that were drafted ahead of him. You're looking at guys like Jarrett Anderson Dolan, who has struggled to make it in the NHL. You're looking at like Jesper Boquist in New Jersey, who's really kind of starting to hit his stride. Like he feels like he's on track. There are a handful of guys in that draft that like haven't made the NHL yet. Shane Bowers from Ottawa was picked in the first round. He hasn't played a game yet. Marcus Davidson hasn't played an NHL game yet. He was picked above as well. And then you get guys like Jason Robertson was picked in the second round, and obviously he's worked out really well for the Dallas Stars, 125 points in 128 career games. And then you kind of flip it and you look at for example a guy like Leah Sanderson, who was drafted by the New York Rangers, has 17 career career points in 109 games. He's with the Los Angeles Kings now, I believe. So it's so tough to look and be like, well, he was drafted in this round, and therefore he should be doing this, this, and this. He should be at this point in his career. Guys develop at different rates. Guys do different things with their career. I think the time to hold on and not panic about Alexandre Texier's development, honestly, because he's doing just fine, in my opinion. And in a minute, we're going to go on. We're going to look at some letter grades. We're going to look at a couple of Twitter comments I got, which are really interesting. And we're going to take a look at what he has to do to continue this path of development. But first, I've got to tell you about Built Bar because they've got a brand new flavor, and that is caramel brownie. Don't you love like a chewy, super chocolatey, gooey brownie? What about a caramel brownie? It's got caramel swirled on top. It's got chunks inside. What if I told you could have one of those, but you could also have it with 17 grams of protein and only 4 grams of sugar? Well, you're in luck because right now at Built.com, you can get caramel brownie Built Bars, and they're a fan favorite, so you had better act fast. Covered in 100% real chocolate, like every Built Bar, but with Built, you don't have to sacrifice tasty for healthy. They're made with collagen protein, which your body absorbs more efficiently and provides a ton of health benefits. There's a million reasons you should try Built Bars, but for right now, let's just say the caramel brownie will rock your taste buds. That's not an understatement. I have tried some. They are incredible. And with Built, if you go to promo code Locked On, if you use promo code Locked On at Built.com, you can get 15% off your order. Once again, that's promo code Locked15 for 15% off at Built.com to get a box of caramel brownie bars or granola or any other delicious flavor that they do. But honestly, you should get the caramel brownie at Built.com. So let's talk Twitter polls because I think most people gave Texier a B, which I think I'm pretty on board with. I'm not upset by that kind of group. I think that's probably about what I would have given him as well. I think had he played a full season, I maybe would have argued for an A. But looking at kind of the body of work that he's given us, the fact that he still hasn't played a full season, 53% of people gave him a B, 29% said C, 12% said A, 6% said D. Duncan McLeod said that a C plus would probably be the ideal grade. He was very good for a significant stretch, but not great for the start and end of his short season. And I think that's the key for me here. Is obviously it's not his fault that he broke his finger. It's not his fault that he missed most of the season due to family issues. I would like to see a full season from Alexandre Texier next year. And that's a tough thing to say to a person of like, what can this player do to be better next season? Oh, well, the answer is to play a full season because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if he's going to get injured again. You don't know if he's gonna have he's gonna have to go back to France for some other reason. Like, you don't know. It's so hard to be like, well, all this player has to do to get better is to play a full season, because I think that's such an unrealistic thing to ask of them, because hockey is a weird sport and sometimes guys get hurt in the season opener and sometimes guys get to play a full 82 games despite getting murdered night in, night out, like Andrew Peake, for example. So that's kind of number one on my list of things to get him to improve on, which is a tough thing to improve on. I think, honestly, he might, like, my advice for Texier to kind of take the next step might just be to keep doing what he's doing. Like, he's clearly doing the right things. I think he really flourished under Brad Larson, like a lot of players did. It's going back to the whole thing. Basically, every player had a career season this season, bar like a handful of the more established guys. And I think that says good things about Brad Larson. That says good things about this team, and it says good things about next season. I think these are young players. They're going to keep getting better and better. I would be very surprised if Texier is not as good as he was this season or better next year. Again, 22 years old, 23 by the time the season starts. He's going to be right in that mix for guys who are, most improved. I would love next season or next offseason when we're doing this, when we're doing the Blue Jackets end of season awards, I would love for Texier to be the most improved player. And I have no doubt that he will be in that conversation because, like I say, he was doing all of the right things this season, and then unfortunately, injury and personal stuff got in the way. But he has been improving steadily since joining the NHL, and that's just a really great thing. I'm super excited about the future of Texier. A lot of people were calling for him to be traded this offseason, or just clearly the kid's not any good. He's a bust. Blah blah blah. We should get what we can for him. Again, kid's 22. Maybe if he was 28 and we were having this conversation, then it would be a different story. But players usually don't hit their peak until 24, 25, maybe even 26 in some cases. So give it 1 year, give it 2 even, and see where Texier is, and then you can start calling for the kid to be traded because he's a bust. In terms of his contract, I'm not sure what we're looking at in terms of longevity. He has one more year on his deal before he's an RFA. So again, I think this is guys typically play pretty well in contract years for obvious reasons. So let's see what he does this season. Maybe he takes a giant leap forward. Maybe he does become that second line center or third line center that ideally we would love him to be. And let's kind of, like I said, let's see where he goes. I'm expecting good things out of Texier this coming season. Hopefully you guys are too. And that's about all I've got for you today. Tomorrow, which is Monday, we are going to be doing some more prospect profiles. I sat down this weekend with Will Scouch. I have plans to sit down with Joel Henderson, who is a WHL scout, and I'm also going to be sitting down with Sam McGilligan at some point. So we got 6 more draft profiles at least coming at you before the draft, and that will, I believe, bring the total up to, I think, 20. So at least one of those guys, if not 2 of them, will be drafted by the Blue Jackets. Who knows? Yama may go off the board. We know he loves to do that, but we're going to be keeping the prospect coverage going basically right up until the draft, and then we'll be doing some actual draft coverage, which will be very exciting. But so yeah, we're going to talk to Will Scouch about Gleb Trikazov, and we are also going to be looking at Owen Pickering, who is a defenseman. He's kind of probably a little low in the rankings for the Blue Jackets, but hey, you never know. Again, Yamo kind of does what he wants. So that's who we're going to be talking to Scout about. That'll be Monday and Tuesday's episodes. Next week is going to be pretty draft heavy because, like I said, I'm talking to a handful of prospect guys to get a few last profiles in. So that is the plan for next week, and then we will continue our season reviews. Next up in our list this is really testing my knowledge of Blue Jackets jerseys. We're going to talk about Eric Robinson, who was another guy that Jeff Spoda mentioned as guys that needed to take a step forward in their development. So we're going to be looking at, did he do that? What's next for Eric Robinson? And we'll also be answering the question, should he be traded for Zach Kassian? Because apparently that's what is being talked about in The Athletic today. So I've been Jay Foster. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find this podcast at LO_Blue Jackets on Twitter. If you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. If you have YouTube, then you can find me over there, or you can follow me on your podcast app of choice. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. Thank you for making this your first or your second or your third listen of the day. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.